Well, greetings, YouTube. Now, before I get into the review for this podcast, let me preemptively apologize for the raspiness in my voice. My allergies have kicked in full throttle. You might hear me cough a bit, but I got Halls here on standby. So hopefully we shall survive. So Wrath of the Titan. Now, if you recall my review for the remake, I was not the biggest fan of not the first. I get so confused when they do these fucking remakes. The remake, technically, in this new set of, I guess, franchise, it's the first one, but it's a remake. Yeah, I was not the biggest fan of the remake. I think we got that established. It had major pacing issues, major characterization issues, major plot issues. It had pretty much all the issues. Yet that movie made money, and John Carter becomes the biggest bomb. I am disappointed in you, audience. Shame on you. But, Wrath here, the sequel to the remake, does give this franchise at least a chance to stand on its own footing. I don't have a previous film to compare it to, although I am going to still compare it a bit to the original Clash of the Titans, as well as several other Greek films. But this is really an opportunity to bring these characters and have them kind of get graded on its own merits a bit. And when it comes to that, this film is an improvement over the first one. It's better paced. There's not as many characters. They do concentrate on a core group of characters. They don't introduce a ton of new individuals. They do, but none of them are really major. Like, we get, they still have a slight issue with that. Like, they introduced Poseidon, who I'm pretty sure was in the first one, but he was just one of the gods sitting in the background. Which, by the way, what happened to the fucking god's shiny armor? Now, I'm sure they're going to do some sort of BS that, the gods are weaker now, so they don't have the shiny armor. Bullshit. Where are my gods' super shiny armor? That was one kind of neat thing you kind of got an ideal of from the first movie. That, yeah, these guys are gods and not just dudes walking around in robes. Just saying. Anyway, we get Poseidon, played by Danny Houston, by the way, in what is basically a glorified cameo by good. Basically, this movie does that with a couple of people. Here's a great quick cameo. They're in there for a couple of maybe 5 minutes worth of screen time. They do the same thing with Bill Nye, just to make the film look like it's super packed with stars, basically. But yeah, Poseidon's in there for like 5 minutes near the beginning. They bring in Bill Nye later on to be packed in there as well for like a similar role for 5 minutes. But what was I getting into? Yeah, he's introduced. He just goes, "Find my son," and he turns to dust. I didn't know how so traditionally Greek gods died. They turn into sand, apparently. But they do at least do a good job of the new people that were. I'll get into that in a second. Pretty much everyone else remains that survived from the first one. We have Hades, Zeus, Perseus, Andromeda. That form is the main group. Now we are introduced to two new characters that fill up a lot more screen time. Ares, who was probably in the first one as a character, as one of the gods sitting in the background that didn't do much. And of course, our new guy, Agenor, played by Toby Kebbell, who they spend the least some time introducing, setting up. They kind of concentrate a lot of the what they had in the previous film being split up between different characters who were in the Perseus's group. They kind of concentrate all those characters into Agenor's character. So he's both in their demigod. He's a bit of, towards the end, he's more of a soldier. He's got a real character arc because, hey, instead of having all these disjointed characters from the first film, he's also a bit of a comic relief, too. They concentrate all those elements into one individual, and thus he has a character that has multiple traits, who has a story arc to him. where he goes from being, sitting in his underwear in Andromeda's dungeon to leading men in battle against Kronos himself. Well, not really, but the little tiny spitballs that Kronos shoots out. So, I mean, at least they have that with him, and it is an improvement because we have less characters to keep track of, and most of the characters they do bring back from the first one, therefore they at least don't need an introduction. You don't need to establish stuff with them. They did, however, get rid of the one what was her name? The one that married Perseus. Well, they say now they married him, but the one that what was her name? Io. Io from played by Gemma Arterton. I think that's how you pronounce her name. But yeah, she is killed off screen, even though she is a supernatural being. They really. This is what I'm kind of talking about. The movie is still somewhat disjointed, still poorly paced, especially in the beginning. Because they just kind of say, and my wife, she died. How? You need to explain some shit from people that saw the first movie. It was like, wait a minute. Okay, she was kind of supernatural-ish. She was in with the gods, kind of. We kind of thought she had some special... I mean, yes, we knew she was mortal, because she did technically die in the first film and then brought back. But to kind of just get a cold and die off screen... I mean, I understand you wanted to cut down characters, and I applaud you for doing that, because it helped this film a lot compared to the first film. As much fun as having... never mind, he died in the first. I was about to say Mads Mikkelsen, the bad guy from Casino Royale. As much fun as he was in that movie, yeah, you could go with. It was good to cut down on the number of those characters, but still, for her to die off, you couldn't have got her back for a cameo. I mean, you have how many cameo appearances in here? You got Bill Nye and Danny Houston in here, basically as nothing more than glorified cameo appearances. I call them more glorified cameo appearances because technically they don't count as a cameo because they're in multiple scenes. But really, Poseidon's in 2. Bill Nye is basically in 2. So no, it's not a cameo, technically. And I'm doing the air quotes as I say that, but it's a cameo appearance. And our other new character is Ares, who definitely needed more setup, I think, for his motivation. And, well, first off, you know what? I need to get into this, because since I brought up Ares, the thing is, they make Ares slight... I don't think this is even really a spoiler since it's like the second scene in the movie, but Ares turns on Zeus. He lines up with Hades, who both have decided to make a deal with Kronos since the gods are weakening, that we will screw over the Zeus, bring him before Kronos, have Kronos drain his power, and therefore Kronos will spare us and give us our immortality. Ares' motivation for this is his father doesn't love him. He loves Perseus. First off, Ares has been around for, 10,000 years? Thousands of years. And Zeus is... how long has fucking Perseus been around? 20 years? 25, 30 years? It's like, really? You've been around for thousands of years and only now is this becoming an issue? But that's his, whole motivation. He's supposed to be this father, you love him more than me. Basically stealing from Thor. And granted, yes, Greek tragedy, Greek gods, they had a lot of fucking issues with each other. But still, they really need, I think, show that there was some sort of real neglect or Zeus really not paying as much attention to Ares when he should have. They really rushed the beginning of this too much. Really, they should have, if they wanted to really help us understand the Greek mythology there, they wanted to open up with an action scene real quick, and they needed to get to this first attack on the village by a chimera. They could have opened up with the fucking Zeus putting Kronos into prison. A fucking show us the Titan side. It would have been a fucking epic. I mean, granted, you guys probably didn't want to show how Zeus really fucking slayed Kronos or put him away. The whole, slitting of the testicles. Wait, was that Kronos? No, that was what Kronos did to Uranus. Stop laughing. No, yeah, Kronos is the guy that goes around and cuts off other gods' nuts. Sorry about that. But they do show Kronos as being like this fucking giant. Well, we'll ignore that for the moment. They really should have established the origin of the Greek gods, since you're dealing with the Titans. Hell, even Immortals, which is one of the films I'm going to have to compare this film to, did a really decent enough job. Sorry, there's that cough I was talking about. Introducing the mythology, and kind of at least if I don't think they showed us on screen the Titans being in prison, but they sat back and talked about it a bit. Let's see, anything else with the new characters? Oh yeah, I was talking about Ares. They really don't show us the motivations, and here's going to come a bit of a spoiler alert. So you're getting my sense is I still have problems with this film, but it is an improvement over the previous one. So if you just wanted a spoiler-free review, there it is. From here on out, spoilers are in effect. Okay, end of the film. We have this weird opposite directions are going with the story. On the one side, you have underlying theme here is brothers. That's what they're going for. It is brothers' relationship. You've got Zeus and Hades working through their kind of hatred of each other, and you have Ares and Perseus working through their hatred of each other. Although I really don't see the reason why Ares and Perseus really want to kind of have this feud, other than the writer says that happens, and that Ares is really jealous of Perseus, even though he's never met Perseus before. It's implied Zeus only occasionally kind of stops in and maybe takes a gander at him and go, I'm happy with these two. I don't see the need or why Ares is like that. He's got some major character motivation flaws. At least with Zeus and Hades, they really kind of flush that out. They have Hades kind of get into his motivations is he's really fucking scared about dying. Because, as he puts it in the movie, humans, when they die, their souls go somewhere else. When a god dies, he basically goes into oblivion. And no, not the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. No, nothingness. He turns into sand. And they talk more about, hey, you really tricked me to imprison me in here in the underworld, having to basically guard Papa. Of course I'm a little pissed at you, Zeus. We get some motivation of why these two hate each other. But they reconcile with each other. I think mainly because it's fucking Ralph Fiennes and Liam Neeson. Really good actor. Actually, really, I would have just preferred the entire movie watching all the guys that play the Greek gods. Because, you have Liam Neeson, Ralph Fiennes. Who else we got here? Looking on IMDb real quick. Oh yeah, wait. Bill Nye, Danny Houston. These are all really fucking top-notch actors who can really act. And the scenes where they're playing off each other, put really good actors together, even with a crap script, they will produce something really golden stuff. And they do it here. You kind of wish they spent more time with these guys, because Ralph Fiennes and Liam Neeson do really good work with each other. Hell, even having Danny Houston in there, he fits in well with them. Unfortunately, we don't see Bill Nye working with these guys, either of those two, even though he's the fallen lost god, which is kind of confusing on how exactly his thing works. His power was taken. I don't know. They mention it real quick. Again, pacing issues with introducing plot issues or plot points. I'll get into that in a second. There's something else that I'm going to talk about with that, but yeah. So those two working, they wind up kind of coming to an understanding with one another, and it kind of a quick change. Although you could kind of see that they were going with this with Hades, but because Ares goes, "You're weak." It's like, oh no, I'm not. You're just overly angry, and most of the time that he's right. Hades is right when he's talking about Ares. But he kind of does change when he realizes, ironically, again, I've criticized this before about inserting kind of Christian philosophy into a movie that's supposed to be about the Greeks, who had a very different religion. And there's this whole thing in here with forgiveness. Not something that a lot of the Greek gods were very well known for. They were more known for being regretful after the fact, after things were irreversible. But here you have Ares and Hades, not Ares and Hades, Zeus and Hades kind of forgiving each other for what they did. Zeus forgiving Hades for doing all the dickish stuff he's been doing because, hey, he screwed over Hades. And Hades kind of forgiving Zeus for screwing him over. And then they team up and become, Wonder Twin powers activate and start poning people. Poning not people, but let me get this name. I'm going to mispronounce this name. I can almost guarantee you. The Hecatoncheires. Yes, my Greek is horrible. The Hundred Handers, as they're translated from English. As I said, I know a little bit about Greek mythology. Who basically in this movie only have 4 hands and have they're like 2 bodies fused together. Granted, it'd be very hard to show something with 100 hands, but still. Anyway, yeah, they're honing these guys. A fun scene, yes. Although Zeus looks way too much like Jesus in this movie. He's got the white robes and stuff. It's like that's why he was better with the armor. You could tell he was a Greek god and not looking like Jesus. Anyway, those two get together. At the same time they're getting together, fucking Perseus and Ares, 2 people that should be able to come together and work out their differences because they don't have a really long history of hating each other, fucking kill each other. Over what? Not really. Perseus kind of calls him a pussy at one point to get him to face him so he could steal one of the Zeus's weapon to form his spear of ultimate power. No, that's not what it's called in the movie. And Perseus stabs the fuck out of him at the end. I was expecting probably also to kill off the god a little bit more than stabbing him with a knife. At least have him get the lightning bolt and zap him with the fucking lightning bolt. I could at least buy that a little bit more. But alas, and this is also one of the things I was going to get at with the mythology. They make Hades the god of death and Ares the god of war, the bad guys. Granted, Hades turns around, and I made this comment when I reviewed Clash of the Titans. Hey, in Greek mythology, Hades is not the devil. He's just the god that runs death. Somebody's got to do it. He's not a bad guy. He's not evil. He's not, the enemy. Really, you could have put probably a lot of other gods in front of Hades. And to make Ares the god of war the bad guy, you throw us a curveball. Make it like Athena as the bad guy. Or, God, I don't even know how many Greek gods there are, but you could have picked some others. Poseidon as the bad guy, there you go. Really, there shouldn't be this issue. But it's just stereotypical, and I think it shows a real lack of understanding of Greek mythology. Although they do have the Monitor in this movie too. Although he's not in Crete, and they don't explain what the Monitor is. He's just there so people go, Monitor! They don't explain the entire philosophy behind him, or, what he represents at all. He kind of shows the god's cruelty of fucking with people a bit. Although he is a little bit more like how the Greek legend describes the Monitor, and that he's more of a mix of a man and a beast, rather than just being a kind of a cow that has kind of humanoid, anthropomorphic cow, basically, is what it's normally depicted as a Monitor. His one's a little bit more distorted, a little bit more of a mix between a man and a beast. But this movie has got the Monitor, and the one movie that's supposed to really have the Monitor, The Legend of Theseus in Immortals, they didn't have an actual Monitor. Even though they had Greek gods in that movie. If they were doing Troy in that movie, I am getting sidetracked. Anyway, is there anything else I want to talk about this film? Oh, there is one more thing. The final battle. They really, in their movie, did not have much of an excuse to have that final battle. And I'm not talking about with Perseus himself. I'm talking about with the armies. The Hundred Handers and the Greek phalanxes fighting each other. Because in the end, they didn't help out Perseus at all. You really could have done that entire scene with just Hades coming up to the tent where Liam Neeson is, giving me his little regeneration, and them kind of distracting Kronos as Perseus comes in and fucking chucks the spear down Kronos' throat. The army did nothing. They fought the Thousand Handers, or the Hundred Handers. But that was like a sideshow to everything. There was no purpose for that to be there. There was nothing really at stake. Everything else was being handled by the gods and Perseus. Really, the humans took a back seat. If nobody was in the field in front of the volcano where the battle was going on, really nothing would have changed. There would have been a few hundred handers who would have been wiped out by Zeus and Hades. That's about it. It is, though, and I say somewhat rectified, with the original having Perseus and Andromeda get together. They were supposed to at the end, although they tried to make Andromeda warrior queen, and I think they pushed that a little too hard. The original Andromeda in the movie clearly established she was royalty, she was independent, she could run things, but it didn't make her the warrior queen. Especially because in this movie, even though she's running around wearing Greek armor, non-existent Greek armor, but then again, this is a bit of a fantasy. My apologies. Granted, this does go to my exception where I really don't care that much because it's obviously a fantasy. It's a mythological fantasy film, if I want to put it like that. To a degree, it's a sword and sandal. I don't know if you would want to call it sword and sorcery. But it's a mythological film. But my problem with this is they still basically made her getting punched around. She gets knocked around. She doesn't really fight that much at all in the movie. So you could have had her come out when she's leading the army wearing, you don't have to make her prissy, but, okay, she's wearing the robes of a queen. She's in charge. I mean, all she is she sits in the back and plans the strategy. You can have her plan the strategy. She doesn't have to wear body armor to plan a strategy. You don't go into the bowels of the Pentagon and find the Joint Chiefs of Staff sitting there in body armor as they plan out how to, invade or how to do another operation in Afghanistan. She could have wore the robes, and her character could have stayed exactly the same. And I don't know. It is a minor thing that I get annoyed with because they make her up to, probably because they do make her up to be the warrior queen, and then she gets knocked around a bunch for the rest of the movie. Well, I guess in that case she needed the body armor because she gets hit a lot. There is obviously, I think part of the reason this film seems a lot more jumpy in the beginning, though, my last point here, is I think they cut out, again, a lot from this movie, especially in the beginning, to get things rolling. I don't know why they did this. Well, here's why I think they did this is because in the credits, I see both Apollo and Athena mentioned. I do not recall seeing them at all in the actual movie. I don't recall seeing them in the background at any point. There was literally the one scene where you finally see the gods. It's Poseidon, Zeus, Hades, and Ares. Those four. But I'm seeing, at least on IMDb, credits for Apollo and Athena, which is making me think that there was a scene where they established some more backstory with the other gods. Maybe this is explaining what happened to the other gods, because in the end, Hades is the only god left. Because I guess the directors really like Ralph Fiennes. Now they say he's depowered, but I have no fucking clue how these gods work here. Because they have power, but they need the mortals to maintain that power. But how do they have the power in the first place if they were around before the mortals? It's confusing. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Writers are being schizophrenic here. But Hades is still around. So there's technically one god left. I guess if they make a third film, we will see it. Oh, and one thing I will say, I did, when they had the Chimera attack the village that Perseus lives in, I guess I've been playing way too much Skyrim, because I was thinking, you fool, use your shouts to attack him. I don't know, it reminded me of a lot of Skyrim when I saw that Chimera attack on the village. I'm not saying they stole that, because obviously, Skyrim is not the first film to have a creature attacking a fucking ancient village with fire-breathing stuff. I apologize if this review is a little crappy because of the voice. It happens. Overall, film worth seeing. It's an improvement, so if you like the first one, you will enjoy this movie. You will probably like this even better. It's a much tighter film. It's a little choppy for my tastes, but they've got better characterization. They're not as bouncing all over the place. It's more focused. If you're picky about Greek mythology, go to see Immortals, not go see Immortals, but pick up Immortals on DVD, because they do the gods a lot better how they really are kind of supposed to be. This, they kind of go with their own thing. They kind of make up their own rules when it comes to these gods. Not going to be one of my favorite films. It's tolerable. It's probably not something I'm going to pick up on DVD. I'm going to stick with my original Clash of the Titans from the 80s with Sir Laurence Olivier. Thank you very much. But I don't despise this film, which is an improvement. And like I said, if they had more of just these really great actors, Bill Nye, Danny Houston, Ray Fiennes, and Liam Neeson, working more together and getting more screen time with those guys on screen, would have been a better movie. Oh, and Sam Worthington's got to hide his accent better. They really let him have his full-blown Australian accent. Well, not full-blown, but his Australian accent leaked out a lot in this film. I'm not sure if he just didn't really care that much, or the directors thought it sounded good. But I don't think he sounded out Australian in the previous movie. Just saying. Now, that is it for me. I'm about to cough up a lung. Signing off.